Okay, guys, we're going to call this meeting to order. It is 10:01. This meeting is called to order. We'll start with public comment on closed session. Do we have any public comment? Caller, go ahead.
Hello, this is Renee Westelusk. I have two questions. One is there any discussioning happening if the Indian Wells Valley Water District comprehensive adjudication is going to have any effect on the IWVGA? And my second question is, are we to expect all these litigation problems listed under closed session to drag on for years? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Would you like me to address those?
Yes, please.
So, good morning, Renee. We're not going to, I can't talk about what we're going to talk about in closed session. So I can't talk about the first question. As far as your second question is concerned, we're optimistic that at least for some of the litigation, we will be able to resolve that more in terms of months rather than years.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Renee. Do we have any other public comment? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we are going to adjourn into closed session at this time. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. We'll begin with the report out on closed session.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. The board met in closed session on a number of items. 5 of those were litigation items that were listed as 4 separate matters on the closed session. The board received a report from special counsel on those matters, but there's no reportable action on any of them. However, the board also met in closed session to discuss a conference with real property negotiators regarding the acquisition of state water project water entitlement. And I do have a very brief report regarding that item. The board directed the negotiator to issue an offer on that water to the seller. And Mr. Chair, that concludes the report.
Thank you. Okay, if you'll follow me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for just a brief moment of personal prayer. Okay, next we'll have a roll call.
Vice Chair Rotora.
Here.
Chairman Heyman.
Present.
Director Peters.
Present.
Director Vallejo.
Present.
Director Itmeyer.
Present.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, consent agenda. Item A, approved minutes of the board meeting June 9th, 2021. Item B, 90-day check-in from Regional Government Services. Item C, approved expenditures. Item CI, $50,463.44.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think the plan was to do public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So, all right, next we're going to have public comment. So this time is reserved for public to address the items, or address the board about items not on the agenda. No action will be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. So at this time, we will take public comment. We'll start with the floor, and we'll also be taking any call-in public comment also.
My name is Sophia Merck. I want to thank you for having a public meeting. and I understand how difficult it has been for the public. A lot of times, and myself, we've tried to call in, and we haven't been able to get through. So I want to thank you for having a public meeting. Second thing I want to address is I think it's really unfair, the amount of money that's being charged to Searles and to the Indian Wells Valley Water District. And I think an analysis needs to be done in regards to a better rate. Searles Valley has been here longer than the Navy. And it was called AMPOD. It's been called many things, but they were here way before. I think we need to respect our neighbors, whether it's Searles Valley, the Indian Wells Valley Water District, or the farmers. And I really think we need to respect them. Third thing I want to bring up, it would be very advantageous for the public when they call in to have a phone number up there. It would also be very advantageous for them to know where you are on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Shirley Kirkpatrick again. I'm here again. I just want to say, when the
Shirley, could you please speak into the mic? Thanks.
When the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act was passed into law in 2014 and took effect in 2015, I knew this would be a problem and hoped our valley would use wisdom in handling this unconstitutional law. But here we are. I wrote a letter to the editor in 2015 to that effect, and you can go look at that. Anyway, I'll refer to that later. The government of California is overstepping the constitutional limits, and Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority is following suit to that. Sustainability laws came in from the United Nations, and I have an article here from the Library of Congress website titled United Nations, United States, California Water Rights Law Lauded. The United Nations Special Rapporteur had visited California. The Special Rapporteur is an independent expert working in an unpaid capacity for the United Nations, said that following the adoption by California of a comprehensive water rights law, the next step would be to develop policies for the water sector, and she offered her assistance to the state for such an undertaking. Then, with the unelected Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, came the move to require all private property well owners to be required to register their well. That was in July 18, 2019, and I've been to several meetings during that time. This turned into the monster we have now, requiring Searles Valley to minerals $6 million a year fees. Okay, the point I was trying to make, and I've made several times, is the United Nations is a globalist entity, and we're losing our sovereignty to that, the United Nations, and this plan of Jerry Brown's that we're instituting. It's bad enough that we're having sustainability things required in California, but the way that's being handled, we're effectively destroying businesses, destroying agriculture, and the United Nations has never been for our benefit. These are the guys that wear the blue helmets that rape people and they have serious, human rights issues and whatnot. So I'm just saying that we really need to pay attention to history. And we don't want to be on the wrong side of history on this thing, that what we're doing, it's called, I don't know if you guys ever heard of watermelon politics, green on the outside, red on the inside. So what we're doing is, by going along with the United Nations and these policies, is destroying businesses and instituting communist values into our valley. So that's my point I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Judy Decker. I'm here as Vice President of the Eastern Kern County Resource Conservation District. Along with some of the procedural items that Sam mentioned, I think it would be nice if you had name tags or at every meeting introduce the people who are not board members. But what I'm here to say, I have three things for you. The first one is, fortunately, because we are no longer in lockdown, the Eastern Kern County Resource Conservation District is going to have some informative talks for the public, including yourselves, and a plant sale this year. The talk this year is going to be on August 14th. I'm not entirely certain of the exact date, but you can find that. It will be in the paper and on our website. The lady that's going to talk, her name is Medina Asbel. She's an expert in native plants. And that is what, because of the water situation in this valley, we are going to stress to the public is using native plants in their landscape. And we have acquired a source for some of those native plants. That's the first thing. The second thing is I am not aware. I've listened to you as much as I could hear of your meetings over the last 16 months or so. I'm not aware that you know of Assembly Bill 252. It is something that you need to check out. It, on the surface, appears to be a good thing because it's talking about ways to address the fallowing of agricultural lands. But if you read it more carefully, it takes away authority from the sigmas of the state and puts them in the hands of the various bureaucracies that the state has. It also has no mention of the private landowner. So I bring that to your attention. The third thing I want to say is the lady that spoke, Ms. Kirkpatrick, and others who have spoken and written letters to the editor. On the negative side of things, many of the things they have criticized the board for are correct. And the five of you, none of you are the original board members that started the JPA. I see John sitting up here. We've been here together for a long time. I want to remind you that the board formed two committees, the policy committee and the technical committee. The first job was given to the policy committee early on, and their job was to develop a public engagement policy plan. They did that. They worked very hard, and they did that. The board adopted it. The end. You need to look that up and read it over and start practicing it, because you have lost over the years a lot of credibility with a lot of people, water district customers, large agriculture, industry, and the private well owners. And many of these people will not come forward and speak to you. So I suggest strongly that you get that document out, look it over. If there's something you don't like, change it. If you like it, start using it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Mike Neal. Some of the things I just heard spoken by other citizens ring very true in what they have just said. One of the big problems that I've addressed directly numerous times and other persons have brought up, even at the very last meeting that was held here by this agency, was that people are not being listened to. This causes a lot of division in this valley which you should be well aware of if you're paying attention whatsoever. Now we just heard that the state, of course, is going to move in various fashions and just take over. Well, originally this whole board was all about, we don't want the state to take over. We want to do it ourselves. So you're doing it yourselves, and you're screwing it up as far as I'm concerned. When you alienate hundreds and hundreds of your residents and then hold what I'm going to call a pretty fake Prop 218 hearing where you had 5,000 protest votes. You didn't have to vote to go ahead with the replenishment fee. It wasn't a deal where you had to have a majority of protest votes. When you got a bunch of protest votes, that should have been your impetus to say, okay, we're not going to do this. People don't want it. Well, pay attention to what happened right after that. You got almost 3,000 signatures on a referendum petition to get a vote, an actual vote on that issue. And that was just offhand, ignored. All your attorney had to do was just say, oh, well, no, that won't stand up. We're not going to do that. So there you go, thousands and thousands of people in the valley saying we don't want this, and you do it anyway. And now you've got all the discord and all the people worried about their very livelihoods in this valley. And guess what? That's all also due to the fact that in 2018, 3 years ago, you were presented with a reasonable approach to drawing down the pumping in this valley by the large pumpers, which would be beneficial over a longer term period of time. But, it had to be the Mick Gleason way or nothing else. And now he's not even here, and you're acting like that he's standing here with a stick right behind your back ready to hit you on the head because you don't continue down that path. You could correct this, but it doesn't look like you want to because you're not at all acting like you still don't want to listen and you don't care about it. Now, that's very, very sad, and that smacks of tyranny in this valley. And I don't think that there are enough people willing to bow down to that in this place to allow this to continue. So I hope that I see a lot more people in this room in the next meeting, and you get to hear from a lot more people complaining about this up at this podium, making you sit here and listen to them because you have to by law.
Good morning, Charlie and Mazzy. Me and my wife found out about this meeting when we called the water company. Pretty much a thing that I got to do every month to find out where I'm at when they're going to check my meter, because of the fact that we do pay significantly more money per month on a water bill. These are friends of mine that I've grown up for years to enjoy their company when I do pay my bills. It's one of the things that I've always done, not by a mail, but in person. They're friends of mine. And then they got a glass in front of them at some point in life here, in the most recent years of life. And now I look at that glass and I wonder, now I can see why it might have been put in to begin with. But the unfairness of us being implemented with these authority, the name that you guys call yourself, self-implemented, I'm sure, seems uncomfortable for the community. I don't think there's many people here right now because in reality, the reason I found out about it was because I said, I'm going to go ahead and we'll call so we can turn on the water to save our trees. These trees are part of the community that makes it a fairly nice area instead of just desert. But we found out that moment, and I can see now that it's not advertised as the vote was back in the day. We got this stuff that came through, and I think most of the people just threw it away, thinking it was junk mail. And then we had these votes, the petition. Nobody could come in for the most part, I believe, to even see how the vote would turn out. It was COVID. So it turned out to be a very convenient time to implement things that are unfair to the community. But I don't know how many of you people are on this. I see this. I think there's somebody listening somewhere that's probably getting paid. These wages are paid what? I'm not sure. You could tell me. The wages that you people are getting paid and the amount that you might get paid for just for this group here. I bet it's significant. But anyways, we're paying, I'm sure, but I could be wrong. But I'll tell you what, in reality, there's a manipulation of the weather. President Johnson said it years ago, 1962, I was a little boy. We know how to put a cloud layer over the world. And he who controls the weather controls the world. That being said, you guys, they know how to make it rain. We don't have to be in drought. She said it. She mentioned it clearly. The elite. I've said my share. Let's be fair, people. Let's be fair.
My name is Margaret Graham, and I've just mainly come to protest the amount you charge for your fee. I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income. Now my water bill is twice as much. I pay almost within a few dollars for your groundwater fee as I pay for my water bill. I'm more fortunate than most people. There are a lot of people on incomes, fixed incomes. They're not even going to be able to run their cooler because of this fee. I think it's very, very excessive. I don't know where you came up with it or why you came up with it, but I think you need to moderate it. That's about all I have to say, except I'm also concerned about your Searles Valley thing. There's 700 people or so that work over there. If you run them out of business, that means 700 houses in Ridgecrest that are going to be vacant. 3 times that many people are going to move out of the valley. They're not going to be shopping at merchants or paying taxes. And
Excuse me, I apologize for interrupting. Mr. Chair, I've got a message that there's not sound on the WebEx currently, and I didn't have an easy way to communicate that to the...
There's sound, but I believe that the speaker isn't actually speaking through the microphone.
Oh, I see. The issue is the mic.
What? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm through. I hope you heard some of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Hello. My name is Everett Dobbins. I moved here in 1968. My dad brought me here. He was in the Navy. As long as I've lived here, I've seen the snake oil water companies attitudes come in, these people saying that they need to do this, they need to do that. We never ran out of water. We've never. And now here we are, this Groundwater Authority attacking my job. 700 people rely on this job that's been here over 100 years. You got 40 years to fix this, and the first thing you want to do, take out pistachio farmer jobs, take out Searles Valley. What the hell is wrong with you people? That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. I've lived here my entire life, and I have never seen such ignorance ever. You guys come in here, Groundwater Authority, self-appointed? What is that? Self-appointed. A governor says, hey, we're going to take control of the water. We're going to limit you to 10 gallons a day or some crazy thing. That is ridiculous. I know everybody I know, and like that guy said, I heard of this in the Newsweek review 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I cannot believe it. Not advertised. If you guys are serious and you mean business and what you're doing is good for this community, you make sure everybody is here to hear what you have to say. Because I'll tell you right now, what you have to say, I don't like any of it. Not one thing. And I would be willing to pay. I'd be willing to pay if I thought it was good, if you guys had a plan. But you know what? You guys don't have a plan. And you got this plan here, we're going to put water here. How are you going to pump water into the ground? How are you going to pump water into the aquifer? That would be, that's a good one. Okay? A realistic measure would be, we're going to do desalination plants. They're not expensive. People want you to believe that it's this expensive thing. You can harvest ocean water for free. I'm telling you, we have so many options, but your option is shut down Searles Valley, shut down pistachio farmers. That is insane. I'm telling you. And I've dealt with some of these people. I know I've dealt with you on chiropractic on my back. I know, you know, and I have respect for these people, and I'm telling you, I've lost all respect. You guys are like the enemy. You're attacking the citizens. I mean, this poor lady, she's on a fixed income. You want to take what money she has? I don't get it. It just, to me, I don't get it. I'm sorry, but I do not get it. I don't understand what the point is here. You have 40 years to fix it, and you want to start out by shutting 1,000 jobs. I'm sorry, but I am against all this.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Raymond Kelso. Water's a passionate issue, isn't it? I think the demonstration today shows the criticalness of our water situation here. And it's up to you folks to make some decisions and do something. So please, do something. Show us, show the community, show the thousands of people out here that something's going on and all the water isn't being sucked up by big ag. That's the issue. Keep the politics out of it. Let's keep the attorneys out of this. Let's use some common sense. Common sense, folks. We all drink water. Our future depends on water. My grandkids depend on water. So does yours. What are you doing? Get with it.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment from the floor? Well, no, we've limited it to one.
Why is there so few people here today? It's an easy question to answer, you guys.
Sir?
Hi, good morning. My name is Shirley Jorgensen. I've lived in Ridgecrest for approximately 22 years. My main objection, I understand water conservative measures. I understand that. Water is like blood. Can't manufacture it. Can't replace it. We all need it. My issue with the authority, the ground authority, was Mike Leeson. That man pushed that vote through at a time when our community was struggling through toothaches, the pandemic. He came in here as a military man and used a military tactic to get you all to vote for this, the fee. And I think the whole damn thing needs to be redone. Redone. I don't agree with that kind of takeover. The Navy, this community has always, that I've seen, supported the Navy. Always. And in turn, the Navy always supported the community. Now, he turned the Navy against us, against Searles Valley, against agriculture. It's a horrendous situation. I think we have the brightest, most intelligent minds in this community than most areas in the whole nation. We got to figure this out. We can't be reckless. We can't be hurting the citizens and employment. And that's all I have to say. Figure it out. Put some intelligent minds in it. And let's all get together, but do not destroy families and incomes and this community over what can be solved. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Raymond Kelso again.
We're limited to one
Helen
public comment.
Jackson asked me to present this for her. She does. She has health issues, and it's just a short couple paragraphs.
Okay.
Now I can just hand it to you if you'd like that.
No, that's fine.
Whatever freedom of speech here lets me do.
I think that's perfectly fine. Go ahead.
Okay, this is from Helen Jackson. She's back there, and she just handed this to me. I have not read it myself.
Let's not interrupt,
you need to
sir.
let
Please,
other people
we're
have a
going to
chance
keep
to speak.
civility with everybody's respect of their ability to comment. So let's keep the comments. If you're not at the podium, let's keep the comments quiet.
It's freedom of speech. Helen Jackson, I'm writing concerning your proposed increase and or fees of water usage by, quote, the well owners, unquote, of which I belong. I went into the office to pick up your report, and the card I received did not even mention your findings, plans, or any mention of forthcoming meetings. I am in a very stressful situation after death of my 3 eldest children and their fathers these past years. I am unemployed, can't find work, blatant discrimination. I cannot deal with any, and I mean any fees or other conditions that you are planning to implement on well owners. I hope you will reconsider any fees as planned. The water district spends thousands of dollars in testing our water, but you can't change all the contamination we all drink daily. Sincerely, Helen Jackson.
Do we have any call-in public comment? Any other further public comment from the floor? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we are going to move on to item number 6, consent agenda. Item 6A, approved minutes of the board meeting June 9th, 2021. Item 6B, 90-day check-in from Regional Government Services. Item C, approve expenditures. C1, $50,463.44 to Stetson Engineers replenishment fee. Item C2, $19,168.75 to Regional Government Services extraction fee replenishment fee. Item C3, $10,287.50 to Capital Core Group replenishment fee. And item C4, $45,279.30 to California Rural Water Association Prop 1 Grant SDAC. Any member of the board wish to pull any of these items? Any member of the public wish to pull it?
I would like to pull 6B
and 6C1.
Okay, any other items? Okay, with that, we will go ahead and look for an approval of the remaining items.
Motion to approve.
Did we take public comment on the items?
Oh, I thought
No.
we did before we went into
No.
session.
All right, so we'll back up, take public comment before we, okay. So we'll open up to public comment on item number 6, the consent agenda.
Hey, Scott, it's John Vallejo. Just a reminder to please speak towards the microphone. We're having trouble hearing what you guys are saying up there.
John, we're having a little trouble hearing you.
I was saying the same thing. Please just remember to speak towards the microphone like at all times. His mics are obviously very low sensitivity.
Is this on?
Get a little closer to the mic.
Hello. Is this working now?
A little closer. Try it.
Go swallow the thing.
There you go. You got to be right on it.
Okay. You need to get a better microphone up here. Those don't cost much money. All right. So yes, for comments, I guess I don't have a comment other than there's no explanation that I know of on 6B. What is this 90-day check-in from Regional Government Services? What's that supposed to be about? What kind of information is the public supposed to get on this, so we know, what we're getting for our $19,000 for this last month, and apparently it's going to be about that much every month. I did note in the last financial report that it's slated to spend almost $2 million out of the pumping and replenishment fees for administrative type expenditures. So, 2 out of the 10 million, that's too much, but what would we expect other than that from this board is spent money like water from day one. And again, the 6C4, what are we getting for $45,000 from California Rural Water Association? That's we can say is worth $45,000 of our money. It's my money, it's your money, it's everybody's money. Even you guys get to help pay for that.
Chairman, if I could jump in real quick, I would like to let Mr. Neal know that the RGS report, as well as all the backup material for these items, is in the agenda, and I believe that's available online.
Correct. Any call-in public comment? Okay, seeing none, any board, or we'll go ahead and move to approve the remaining items on the item 6.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, barring the 2 items that Mr. Rattore wanted pulled.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Rattore,
Aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll move to Mr. Rattore, your discussion on item number B.
Yes, thank you. The summary identifies an accounting and financial reporting issue in the summary. I was hoping we could have some expansion or clarification on what that really is.
Let me make sure I am addressing the correct portion.
In the conclusion and recommendation, starting sort of in the middle, accounting and financial reporting.
Okay.
Carol, you may need to lean into the microphone a bit more.
How's that? That
Yeah.
better? Okay. Primarily, you know that we've been working to put together revised financial statements, and we're also now looking to prepare for our audit financial statements for calendar year 2020. And unfortunately, we don't yet have access to all of the information that we need, and a lot of that is because different agencies have done different aspects of the authority's accounting since it was created. In particular, I think Kern County has a lot of our accounting information, and we're just working to try to get whatever information that we are still lacking so that we can complete compiling our financial statements up to date and make sure that we have sufficient information for the auditors.
Okay, I guess the thing that I noticed was sort of missing, what I was hoping and expecting to see is what's the solution to what I consider to be a fairly significant problem. Do you have a recommendation regarding what do we need to do now? What's the corrective action so that we can actually get the financial reporting going, working?
Well, I believe we're making good progress in that direction. We just need to, I think, have better communication channels with the personnel at the county and perhaps the water district, with the folks that were actually doing the accounting, so that we can obtain the information to complete the financial statements, and also to provide the information that the auditors are going to need. Eventually, we're going to be looking towards putting a new accounting software into effect, and that's probably going to be coming towards the end of this year. At least we'll be recommending that to you. But in the meantime, we're working with the programs that we have, and we're working with the information we have. But I don't have a specific recommendation other than just to request, obviously, that the member agencies that have financial information that have been performing that work in the past just be forthcoming, help us out, provide us with the information we need so that we can complete that work.
Have you now taken over the responsibility for all the new invoices and that kind of thing, or is somebody else still in the middle, may I ask?
There's a bit of a process, and April handles some of that directly, and she might be able to give you a little bit more detail on how the process works.
I'm just trying to streamline it so that we can have our own data and you can do your job, because based upon what I read in the document is you can't do your job because you don't have the information you need. And we need to solve the problem. So April, I appreciate it. You know, really don't, what we need to do is solve the problem, and we need to get, if the water district is part of the problem, I can address that. Mr. Peters, if you would talk with the county, that would be great, because we need to get this going. We're 7 months into this fiscal year, and we need to have some financial reporting. So
so I can tell you that we have not taken complete control of it. The county still manages some of the financial transactions, so eventually we'd like to just bring all of that over.
And the transition needs to occur. We can't have 3 or 4 people handling all these things and having to worry about who's doing what to whom. So thank you.
Agree, sir. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to C1.
C1 is the Stetson Engineers invoices, and the parentheses, out in the parentheses says replenishment fee. I'm curious, what is the intention of having replenishment fee out there on the outside of the invoices?
Oh, I believe that's just that's where we are taking the money to pay those invoices.
Okay, I looked. It turns out there's like 20 to 25 different invoices in that Stetson invoice. I looked through them all, and there was one that I identified, which was the imported water negotiations coordination. That is for $230. The rest of them, I couldn't see any reason to be charging the replenishment fee for. I think we need to go in and look at the actual invoice, which are in the package, and identify specifically where those costs need to be charged, because the replenishment fee, or at least the augmented water, imported water portion of the replenishment fee, is for imported water. And the way I calculated, less than 1% of the Stetson invoice was actually directly related to the replenishment fee. So we need to be much more careful. I mean, obviously Stetson needs to get paid. I'll vote for it, but that's not the issue. We need to charge the various invoices to the correct fund. My point. Thank you.
Understand.
Any other questions from the board on either of these two items?
Director Ratora pulled those, so I'll defer to him whether or not he wants to make a motion on those.
I'm sorry, what?
The items that you pulled, I was deferring to you whether or not you'd like to motion those for approval.
Yes, I'll move for approval.
I'll second them.
Vice Chair Ratora,
Aye.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye.
Director Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, Water Resources Manager Report. A, Proposition 1 Grant Status Update. B, Proposition 68 Grant Status Update. C, Recycled Water Program Update. D, Navy Coastal Royalty Fund 2021 projects. E, GSP Plan Projects. Project number 4, Shallow Well Impact Mitigation Program Update. F, GSP Plan Projects. Project number 1, Surface Percolation Replenishment Update. G, Technical Support Services Agreement Status Update. H, IWVGA Desert Resource Institute Basin Model Transfer Configuration Management Plan Status Update. I, GSP Groundwater Dependent Ecosystems GDEs Update. J, Prop 1 Work Daily Management Task Systems Monitoring Wells on Navy Property. And K, Estimated Total Basin Pumping Previous 12 months. So we will go ahead and let the Water Resource Manager report begin. Following that time frame, we will open it back up to public comment.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Heyman, can you hear me? Am I talking close enough?
You have to get right there to it.
Right on top of it, okay. Thank you, Chairman Heyman. I see a lot of new faces out there, so I want to make sure I introduce myself. I'm Steve Johnson with Stetson Engineers. I'm the president and a few other things with Stetson Engineers. We were retained as the Water Resources Manager about I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 4, but it's been a few years. And our original job was to help the authority prepare the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, which we did, and it's been approved by the board. It's now under review by DWR, and we expect comments back from, we've gotten a lot of comments from other people. Everything's in good shape. We expect comments back from DWR, who required the plan. We expect comments back by the end of this year. We have not gotten anything yet straight from DWR. We have gotten comments back from the State Water Resources Control Board, who made comments on our plan to DWR, and we responded to those, but we have not received comments back directly from DWR yet. So, as the Water Resources Manager, we prepared the groundwater sustainability, for those folks that haven't been here, we prepared the groundwater sustainability plan with very active involvement from the PAC and significant involvement from the TAC. We could not have done it without the expertise with the folks on the TAC. Oh, okay, yeah. As described by Judy Decker a minute ago, when the authority was created, they also created a policy advisory committee to advise the board, and they also created that's the PAC, and a technical advisory committee, which is the TAC, which is there to help advise the Water Resources Manager on technical issues related to development of the groundwater sustainability plan and for issues and things going forward. And I think we will have comments later, I'm sure, and I think we intend to have some discussion maybe about bringing the PAC and the TAC back into active meetings. We have been using the PAC and the TAC, more the TAC than the PAC, as we've been going through this period of time, 16 months, which has been difficult for all of us. We have been using the TAC at times on technical issues, using direct mail, email, and correspondence. We have been using the TAC for input, but the idea of not having actual meetings and direct contact has been very difficult for everybody. It's very difficult for us, and I know it's been very frustrating for the TAC members and the PAC members. So I'm sure a lot's happened up here over the last 16 months that I don't know about, and I'm sure a lot's happened to us and me that you don't know about, but I can tell you we've been continuing to work on things and trying to solve the issues up here, and I can tell you from our perspective it's good to be back, and we're happy to be back, and we will be back in front of you folks and tell you what we're doing and hopefully answer questions. We are most of the agenda today. We have a lot of items. I want to make sure you know Jean Moran, who is a very key staff member. She's been working on this GSP and this basin from the beginning. Jean's here with me. She's going to cover the last 4 or 5 items. I have other staff members on the phone that are going to cover some of the items they are working on. I try to have the folks that are actually doing the work on the different tasks to make the presentations to the board and to you folks so that when questions come up, they can be responded to. I'm here to supplement because I've been doing this for almost 45 years, so I can sometimes see where the answers need to go and try to provide clarification. But I will have staff members presenting and then at the end also responding to comments. I think that's about it. As you look at the list, some of the items at the start of the list of the items that we have in the Water Resources Manager Report are pretty regular items. Again, for those that are new, when we started this process, we did make an application and got grant funding from the state. That's a Proposition 1 funding, significant funding. It's close to $2 million. There was a comment earlier, I think Mike Neal made a comment about one of the items, the $45,000 on the consent. I'm not 100% sure, Mike, but I believe that is fully covered by the Prop 1 grant under the SDAC program. So while it's there to be paid, it's reimbursed in full by DWR. So that's some information. Anyway, we try to provide a report on the status of things like the grant fundings that we've applied for and received. We try to provide status on other grant funding opportunities. There is a new Prop 1 Round 3 grant funding opportunity, which I think Joseph from my office will cover when the time is right. It doesn't work for us very much, but we may have some applications. But it's important that you know that we're on top of this. We're looking for money all the time, so we want to make sure we report that. Some of the other items after the first 2 are projects that are ongoing that we're working on that we provide. I try to provide updates, status updates every month as to where we are and where we're going. And then the ones at the bottom, the last 4 or 5 that Gene's going to report on, these are mostly projects that Gene is working on. We don't normally don't provide regular monthly reports on these. But in working with Jean, she felt it was time to, since we were going to meet in person especially, it was a good time to get everybody an update on the stuff that she's working on, that a lot of them associated with the GSP and Prop 1 and just implementation of the GSP and the work that we're doing. So we're going to start with the first one, which on the list, which is the Proposition 1, and then the B is Proposition 68. And I think Joseph from my office, Joseph Montoya, Joseph should be on. Joseph, are you on?
Morning, Steve. I'm on.
Okay. If you would go ahead, Joseph, we'll go through the first couple items. And we're going to take questions at the end of all of the Water Resource Manager Report. Thank you.
Okay, Great. So, good morning, everyone. I'll be presenting, like Steve said, on items A, B, and C of the Water Resources Manager Report. So, starting with item A, the Proposition 1 status update. If you'll recall, we submitted invoices 8A and 9A several months ago, but per direction from DWR, we were instructed to remove some items from those invoices that were associated with the construction elements of our funding agreement. Those revised or modified invoices were submitted back in May. And basically, the indication we've gotten from DWR is that those construction costs will be reimbursed following DWR CEQA concurrence for the construction elements of our funding agreement. They've requested an updated environmental information form and a letter certifying that there were no legal challenges to the Proposition 1 construction elements. I do have an update for this month. We were working with legal staff to prepare the updated EIF, environmental information form. Legal staff has reviewed and approved our responses to DWR for that form, so we will be sending that out to DWR in the next few days. And we'll also be preparing that letter certifying no legal challenges. It will likely require the signature of our general manager, Carol. So we will be putting that together for Carol's signature, getting that out to DWR in the next few days, and hopefully we'll get those removed costs paid shortly. Now, the invoices the modified invoices, the elements of that were submitted, we haven't received word yet as to whether they've actually been approved or paid yet by DWR. But we've got an indication that around May of this year was the end of DWR's fiscal year, and they've indicated to us that during that time it usually takes a longer period to get our invoices paid because they're working on things like passing their own budgets and things like that. So no word yet on payment of the modified invoices 8A and 9A, but we'll be continuing to look out for those. Now, as far as the removed costs for those invoices, we anticipate that either we'll have to submit a new invoice to DWR with those removed costs, either that or DWR will just approve the costs as they were, the invoices as they were submitted. We'll need to coordinate and reach out to DWR and get some clarification as to how those removed costs will be paid, but we're certainly working on that, and we understand that the authority is looking to get reimbursed for that work. So going on to the next slide, invoice 10A, I have nothing new to report for this. Again, we're looking out for an email from our project manager at DWR indicating the invoice has either been approved or paid. So we'll be looking out for that as well. And we'll be submitting our next invoice in progress report no later than August 30th, pursuant to our funding agreement. So that's all I have for item A. And Steve, I just want to confirm we're waiting until the end of the report, the Water Resources Manager report, for public comments.
That's correct. You can go forward, go on with the next slide, Proposition 68.
Okay, thanks. So for Prop 68, again, I don't really have too much to report as far as an update from last month. We received payment for invoice 9B on May 24th, and again, we're waiting on payment for invoice 10B, which was submitted back in May. And similar to Prop 1, we'll be preparing a new invoice in progress report to submit by August 30th. Okay, so that'll wrap up item B. Now going on to item C, the Recycled Water Program update. I do have an update for this compared to last month. And last month I had indicated that the joint scope of work for the Recycled Water Working Group was being prepared and internally reviewed, as well as a draft write-up of the City of Ridgecrest's existing wastewater treatment facilities, uses, and plans to upgrade and expand the treatment facility. The internal review on those two documents has, for the most part, been wrapped up. We're looking to get those released to the Recycled Water Working Group and to members of the TAC shortly after that. We anticipate that going out in the next few days. And I just wanted to provide an update on the next steps that we're going to be taking for this alternatives analysis. And those will include characterizing the effluent quantity and quality from the wastewater treatment plant, and a review of regulatory, permitting, environmental, and legal requirements for the alternatives that we're going to be working with. Just as a side note, on the regulatory side, we noticed that the State Board Division of Drinking Water had released a proposed framework for adopting regulations for direct potable reuse projects. That framework was released for public comment through the end of June. And in our GSP, we indicated that direct potable reuse projects, although at the time there were no regulations for those types of projects, we would be continuing to look out for any updates to regulations to basically determine how a direct potable reuse project could be implemented, if at all, here in Indian Wells Valley. So we'll be reviewing those regulations and other future regulations that are published as DGW continues to develop them. So that'll all be conducted as part of our alternatives analysis. So that'll wrap up item C.
Thank you, Joseph. Just to back up a little bit, now I actually was going to try and jump in before Joseph started on that one. For the fact that I do see a lot of new people here, I want to give you a little bit of background on the recycled water program that you see up there, okay? The way things are right now, the city of Ridgecrest owns and operates a wastewater facility, produces recycled water, and essentially all of that water is put to either beneficial use, evaporation ponds, but the water is disposed of and it's used the way it is now. The city is working on a plant expansion. An expansion is for treatment and for additional wastewater treatment, and will produce additional recycled water available. There are multiple options for that water, and the goal here is to work with the key players, the stakeholders, including the city. And the city has worked out an arrangement, an agreement to work with the Groundwater Authority to do this, to make sure that we review the alternative uses for the recycled water and come up with the best, most effective, cost-effective uses of the recycled water to help us solve the water problem. So that's what this is for, is to try to make sure, everybody's talked about imported water. One of the things we've talked about from the very beginning is that if you want to go out and buy imported water, you need to make sure you're using all of your local resources first before you start looking someplace else. Implement all your conservation programs, do all those things first. So that's what this is for, is to bring the parties together. We have a technical team that includes the city, the water district, city's consultant, our office. I think the county has Kern County has a representative there too. Get all the technical people together and determine what's the best use of that water. The results of that work will likely go through the TAC, which is a bigger group, but it's an entire technical advisory committee, which I described earlier. And if the TAC is good with it, then it will be brought to the board. So that's just a little information as to why this is being presented to you. Okay. Thank you. I think I need to talk closer to the microphone. Okay, it's not me? Okay. Okay, thank you. As you would expect, I could not fix it. But somebody will. Yeah. Okay.
So, well, we just she just pulled it up on her phone, and everything seems to be functioning just fine.
Okay.
So we'll continue to monitor it. If if there's a glitch, we'll get with Gary and see if we can make sure we keep everything running. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. So we'll move on to the next item. One of our engineers, geologists, hydrogeologist, Steve Reich, he's been here talking to you before. I think Steve should be on, and Steve's been running the Navy COSO Royalty Fund. Again, for those that are new here, the Navy, through the coastal, they have an agreement out there for the geothermal process that's out there, and a few years ago they negotiated an agreement where some of the royalty, some of the funds that come out of the sale of the geothermal energy go back to the Navy. I'm giving you a very thumbnail sketch because this is not my area, just so to give you a general on it. And go back to the Navy. And the Navy has certain ways they can use those funds to benefit the community, water and power can benefit the community and benefit the Navy. So we've been working closely with Navy Representative David Janis and a few, Scott O'Neill, a few other people. Yeah. Navy, help folks. Help us with the Navy. Commander Benson, there we go. To develop projects to use those funds to benefit the basin and to benefit what we're trying to do with the GSP. So that's where it came from. Steve Reich, I should be on. Are you on, Steve?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
So I was going to report today, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. I was going to report today on agenda item 7D, which is the royalty funding for FY21. As everybody, I think, is familiar with, well, I guess there's some new people today, but it's to drill and install exploration wells, monitoring wells in Rose Valley for the purpose of measuring recharge and subflow into the Indian Wells Valley. Since I prepared this slide last week, we have been updated that the BLM has posted the cultural resource statement for a 7-day review on their website. This is to be consistent with California Section 106 compliance under the National Historic Preservation Act. It's a 7-day review process, and while we don't really expect, we hope not to have any hiccups from that, but after that 7-day review process, then the right-of-way grant for the installation of those wells could be available next week. So that is the update on the FY21 funding for the Coastal Royalty Fund for the FY22 to update and to introduce some of the new people what that project entails, which is a 2-year project to estimate recharge coming off of the Sierras, off the east side of the Sierras. The first year project, which is FY22, is a geophysical investigation to define the geometry of those basins, the depth and capacity, as well as the location of the boundary fault and the flow across that boundary fault. That would be followed in FY23 by a monitoring well installation. So it's a 2-year project. On Friday of last week, or Thursday maybe, I received the Navy's submittal request form for FY22 funding. I'm filling that out today and plan to have that on the Navy's desk by this Friday, which will be a work plan and description of that first year, the geophysics for the FY22 project. So I just, for those that are familiar with the process, I do have that approval request form. It's being filled out and planned to be submitted in the next 2 days. And right now, that's all I have on both the FY21 and FY22 COSO projects.
That's great. Great. Thank you, Steve. Steve will be back one more item down when we start talking about surface spreading projects that he's working on also. A little more information that I left out for those that are fairly new. The projects, the process for developing these projects, it goes through the Navy. It's a little bit cumbersome in that we're trying to get a lot of input, but I wanted to let you folks know that one of the processes we do is we do take it through the TAC for the technical folks to get their input also, so that we're trying to get broad input on projects that make sense for the basin and for what we're trying to do with the GSP. So the TAC is also involved in that, and we've gotten excellent input from the folks that are on the TAC that are in case you don't know, they're essentially local people with local knowledge that are participating in those evaluations. So we're moving on to the next item. It's the GSP plan project. It's the Project 4 Shallow Well Impact Mitigation Program. A little bit of background on this, again, for the folks that might be new. As part of the problem that we have in the basin with overdraft and water levels dropping, we have shallow wells, a lot of them being local household, we call them de minimis wells, but small household private wells. Some of them might even be mutuals or what we have seen impacts to those wells based upon the water levels dropping and things that have to be done, whether it's lowering your bowls or redoing your well or relocating the well or hooking up to another source. There's all kinds of things that people have had to do over the years. Part of the GSP describes the work that we did to evaluate the shallow wells that have been impacted up until the time we developed the GSP. So that's in the GSP. We also made projections using our basin model, the DRI, Groundwater Authority Basin 3D model of the basin. We made projections on, depending on what we do on a management plan for the basin going forward, made projections on how many wells and generally the locations of wells that will be impacted in the future, depending on which management scenario we use. The management scenario that we are planning to use does still show shallow wells can be impacted. So as part of the replenishment fee that you've heard about, there also is a shallow well mitigation component of that, where part of the money's collected is put into this fund to develop the program. When I say develop the program, that means develop the program on how we identify, evaluate, make determinations on impacted shallow wells, and how we determine mitigation measures and responsibility for mitigation cost. That's what this program is for. Once we get the program finalized, then we would, at that point, start looking at identifying the wells and looking at potential mitigation measures and the rest of the program. So Heather Steele in my office, she's in my office here in Covina. I know Heather's on because I've been texting with her. Heather has been driving the program, and Heather, her name is Heather Steele, really good. She's going to present this slide. Are you there, Heather?
Yes, thank you, Steve. Okay, so I don't have much to report as compared to last month's board meeting. The shallow well mitigation report has been adopted, and it is posted on the website. To date, no shallow well owner has submitted the report form for evaluation to us, so there's nothing on our end to do on that end. The actual written documentation of the program has been prepared. It is still in staff review. There was some delays in that, so it is still here with us among the staff. Unfortunately, it has not been brought to the TAC and the PAC yet, but we are certainly trying to do that as soon as possible. And then after TAC and PAC review and comments are incorporated, we will bring it back to the board for final approval. So the process for evaluating a well, it does get initiated when a well owner submits the report form. And like I said, we have not received any yet. But once a form is submitted, then it would go to the water resources manager to evaluate and prepare a summary report form on that well and potential mitigation. And after multiple wells are submitted within that year, it would go. We would create a priority list and then take that list to the board for adoption and approval, and then after that, implementation. That is the only update on that. Mark.
Thank you, Heather. That's good. Right now, as she pointed out, it's internal staff review. We only have one or two people that still want to comment on our staff level, the GA staff, that want to review and comment on it. One of us, the water district, which is important that we get their comments. As soon as that's done, it'll be released to the TAC. I know there's some TAC members here. I know I can barely see over these lights, but I know Don is over there. And just so those of you who don't know Don Decker has been extremely valuable for us in working with the TAC and getting familiar with the basin and trying to do our job up here. But I just want to let you know that there will be, I think there will be a discussion, maybe some direction, hopefully, but this will be one of the items. I expect this to be one of the items going to the TAC for their first meeting in person, which hopefully will be in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So, okay. Next item on the agenda is the GSP Plan Projects, Project Number 1, Surface Percolation Replenishment Update. Project Number 1 is really imported water, so it's referring to the imported water. And a brief explanation again, Steve Reich will make the presentation on this. A brief explanation again. In most other basins that rely on groundwater, if you have a need to replenish the groundwater from a local or an outside source or recycle, however you want to try to replenish that groundwater basin from the pumping you're doing, the most effective, least cost way to do it is to surface spread it and then let it percolate into the ground. There's been a lot of discussion up here about that option, whether it works or it doesn't work. We think right now, we don't know this, we think there are some areas that it may work. Over near the foothills, the Sierras, the eastern Sierras, part of the basin, there may be some locations that they've been looked at before. They've been looked at by the Water District. Sorry, I can lean forward again. They've been looked at by the Water District. They've been looked at by LADWP. We've looked at them. But definitely the easiest way, I shouldn't say the easiest, the most effective way and efficient way to get water back into that groundwater basin is by surface percolation, replenishment. However, this basin is not only very deep, which makes it hard to get the water down there. We also have a lot of geologic features, clay lenses and things that inhibit the movement of groundwater. We have geology that makes the movement of groundwater very slow, of percolation very slow. And we also have other factors, which I know you're all aware of. We have surface spreading, we have the heat, and we have the wind, which will evaporate it almost as fast as you try to percolate it. So this whole effort that Steve's going to comment on is an effort to put the issue to bed on whether or not surface percolation makes sense in this basin from whatever source it might be. We are working on imported water. We need to know how to get that water to you guys, the customer, whether it's through direct use with treatment, whether it's through direct injection to the groundwater basin, whether it's through surface percolation. However we do, we've got to get that water to you folks so it supplements the groundwater we're pumping. So we need to put that to bed. Recycled water, the same thing. We need to put it to bed, how and where we're going to use it. So this is similar work to the recycled water program that I mentioned earlier. It will not be duplicative. We have the same people working on it. So the work that's done here will be used in the recycled water program. It's just a separate effort to evaluate surface percolation capabilities throughout the basin. Good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter. We just want to know and get it documented. So with that, Steve, if you would pick up on this next slide. Thanks.
Yeah, again, this is Steve Reich, and Steve Johnson, you did a great job of describing the constraints and everything that's being looked at. So I think he did a great job of describing what we're up against, and then we found, we've completed. And I just want to go through, the kind of the progress that we've made, that we've completed the task 1 literature review, and it really has to focus our efforts and update some of the coverages. Soils have been updated in the El Paso Basin by Department of Agriculture, and so we've gone through and really taken a look at where those potential possibilities are, including, the constraints that were just described in terms of hydrogeology, depth of water, the ability to recover. So that is complete. The task 2, which is regulatory constraints and case studies, we've completed that task. We've done a review of projects that are in the area, both in the Lahontan Regional Board issue as well as the Colorado River Plateau Regional Board area. And so we've summarized that in a write-up, as well as the regulatory constraints within California for recharging different types of water. Right now, we're underway in the facility and engineering requirements. As Steve mentioned, the costs that are associated with facilities, including pump stations and pipelines, are important, but also the other environmental things that we talk about. What are the losses? What could we potentially lose to evaporation and evaporation caused by winds and other environmental factors that could affect surface recharge, specifically in the El Paso Basin and areas around Inyo Current. So all that is being put together right now. We are planning on delivery of a technical memo summarizing this work in August to the GA board, the GA. The GA will go through probably a 10-day review, and then we will provide to the TAC for comment. I think, as we mentioned before, we really rely on that knowledge from the TAC to finalize some of the work products that we're doing. So that's a kind of a quick update to where we are on the percolation replenishment update.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I think Steve mentioned that it would go to the board. Actually, I think he meant it would go to the staff, then to the TAC, then to the board. So the process we normally follow is internal GA board staff to review the draft internally. Once we're good with it, we give it to the TAC to get their comments, and once the TAC's good with it, we'll bring it back to the board and get direction from the board. So that's the process. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, items G through J. We have Jean Moran. Very, very good, Jean Moran. I'm glad we have her, and we're going to have her for a long time. We had a great drive up and a great discussion, so I'm going to keep her.
So this section, the next four sections, are more the technical part of the basin. So it is sort of unfortunate that we haven't had the TAC meeting over the last piece of COVID, et cetera, because the basin is complex. And what the TAC supplies is a review and a compilation of all the technical data, as well as determining the technical aspects of the GSP, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So I'm going to talk about four pieces that are moving forward in regards to the GSP. So the next slide, please. The first one is that DWR, through their Technical Support Services program, we applied for and got their support to drill a well. And in the well is 3 separate piezometers that are measuring at 3 different depths the groundwater. So we do have artesian conditions in this location, which means that the water level that we measure in something screened at about 10,000 feet, 1,100 feet, that water level is higher than the water level that we measure at the shallow level, which is about 470 feet. And then we have a mid-level well that is 890 feet deep, and it's actually measuring in between. We're waiting for things to sort of stabilize. The well got drilled in February and March. You can see it right there where it is. It's on BLM land, and BLM supported us with getting all the access and permitting, which includes both biological and cultural support. The GA board signed an agreement with the DWR, and their part of this project was that they provided the staff, us, the water quality sampling, which we have received all the sampling back, and at a future meeting, probably with the TAC, we'll review the water quality. And then also the GA will put this well into the long-term monitoring. We currently have about 150 wells that we monitor both in October and in March to watch where the water levels are. And that is the data that we use to determine how water tables are dropping within the basin. So in this particular area, which is the El Paso Basin, the water table is stabilized. But in pumping areas, the water table is dropping from 1 to 2 to 3 feet even per year. So this area fills in a data gap, both with the E-logs, which was the geophysical logging of the hole. They drilled to 1,500 feet. There was complications at the bottom of the hole such that we couldn't put a well all that way down, but the deepest is 1,100 feet, which is for water supply within the water supply range that we would use. The other piece that I just want to make an acknowledgement on is that the TAC provided, especially there were about 3 members that went through the drill cuttings, the E-logs, determining well construction, where was the best place to put the screen interval. DWR picked up the tab on their professional staff coming out, logging the hole, monitoring it 24 hours a day because they drilled through the night. They did all the management and oversight. They worked with BLM to make sure that there was a silt fence for the tortoise, and did biological monitors with that. They paid the geophysical logging for it. They also sent out a licensed survey crew to measure both the lat long and the elevation in these wells, because that's critical for figuring out water levels and tying them into the other wells within the basin. And they also funded 3 in situ data loggers for the wells. So that was their contribution to the GA. The next slide.
Gene, if I might, again, for the new people that are here, because I think some of the people know this, the TSS you see up there stands for Technical Support Services, and the DWR is Department of Water Resources. The reason why we put that there is because DWR offered this as a grant opportunity, which means it's basically free for the authority and for you folks in the basin. It's not money, but they offer up the technical services at no cost. And so this also came through representatives of the TAC that we had to take advantage of this, so we did. We developed projects, made application, and got the projects approved through DWR for those support services at their cost. So just so you know what this is, we're going back a little bit because I think we've got
Right.
some new people, and it's our first meeting, so thank you.
It's good to have an in-person meeting. So the next slide, the next topic I'm going to cover is the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Model and the transfer of it. So the groundwater model is a tool that simulates the storage and movement of water in the groundwater aquifer. And it's used as a tool. It's first constructed with all historical data. I think it goes back to 1922 or something. It goes way back there, and then it brings it up to current. And it simulates the water movement through that time. It gets calibrated to the historical, and then we look at, well, what if we did this? How will the basin respond? And it's calibrated to the groundwater levels and the rate at which the groundwater levels are declining within the basin. It's the tool that we have to look at how to make the groundwater levels stop going down and be sustainable. So the model was developed by the Navy, and they developed it 2010, 2015. Anyway, it's in that time frame. And so we asked the Navy if they would let the model be used for the groundwater sustainability plan. And in that process, there's also future uses for the model. We've been collecting data, groundwater level data, water quality data, precipitation whenever it's raining and what's coming down creeks. And we want to look at that data within the model. In 2018, which seems like a long time ago, but it's really not that long ago, the Commander Benson wrote a letter about what would be required, what are the conditions of satisfaction for the GA to use the model into the future. And I just sort of tapped some of the words. I know you can read them on the screen, but each one of them is really important. First of all, that the Navy supports the transfer of the basin's model maintenance and further development and configuration management, so the management of the model to the GA board, to the Groundwater Authority. So that's an important feature. It's that the Navy supports this. They require a configuration management process. And given I'm not military, I had to literally go through and study what this process is. And it's a structure that, or a document that oversees, recommends any changes that to the model's capability or functionality. So this document that we've been writing, and it's now draft to the internal, to the staff and to the Navy to look at and review. Once that process is done, we will send it, that draft, to the TAC to review. And then once that's finished, I'll be presenting it at the next board meeting so that that can be understood. But the purpose of this configuration management plan is to allow the model to be maintained and updated as we get new technical data in, and a structure in which how does that new technical data get evaluated. So we had all that SkyTem data that took place. We had this latest well drilling that took place. We're going to be doing those Rose Valley subflow wells. That information will need it. Now, how does that get incorporated into the model and into our understanding of how the hydrogeology works within this basin? So this process is designed to address all that. How do you take that information? How do you review it critically and then determine if it's worth putting it into the model or not? Will it make the difference that it needs to be made? But that all the new data gets addressed. So that's the process of the model transfer. And then the next slide.
Gene, if I might, I'm jumping in.
Okay, that's fine.
Mostly, just a little bit, mostly for the people that haven't been here for a while. Gene covered it very well, how we got to where we are today, but I want to make sure folks are aware that the work that the Navy did to take that model, take this the groundwater model, the DRI model in, to take that model and pay DRI to upgrade that model. They spent a lot of money doing that, and then their cooperation to make that model available to us saved the Groundwater Authority, saved you folks a lot of money on the development of a model. The GSP effectively required that we have a model for the basin. To be able to use one that the Navy had already prepared and updated and upgraded it to a certain extent, did save us a lot of time and money. We went ahead and did upgrade it again. Once we got it, we did work to upgrade the model, which we have now. Doesn't mean it won't be upgraded again in the future, but work was done to upgrade the model to get it up to speed, all done through the TAC. And in addition to that, just for general knowledge, the in-kind services that the Navy provided for that model, the work that they did, we were able to use that in our application to the state for the Prop 1 funding for the part of the local match that might be needed for funding of grant funding for projects in the basin. So the Navy has been helping, and they've been helpful on a lot of the work we've been doing. So I want to make sure you folks know some of that background.
So the next technical item is from the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. We are required as part of that to monitor groundwater-dependent ecosystems. What those are on that map, and almost all of them are on the Navy property. They are vegetation that requires water, wet feet. So they intercept the water table and take water from the water table. So these groundwater-dependent ecosystems are certain vegetation types. I know I'm not expecting you to read the legend on the bottom, but this is the state database that puts this together. And we are working with so the plan is to go out and look at some of these areas that have wells, already existing Navy monitoring wells, both deep and shallow, and look at sites. We have 5 sites that we're going to be looking at with a Navy biologist and a Navy geologist and ourselves, and see if we can find places where we can monitor both the deep water level, which is artesian going up. It's not flowing, but it's pushing up. It has a higher water level when I measure deep versus the shallow water level, which is below the ground surface. Those two levels, we want to make sure there's always a positive gradient up. And that plus the health of the vegetation. So there's a few things that we have to still develop with this plan, but one will probably be that we'll be asking the Navy to do a seasonal survey of that vegetation in those places to make sure there's no additional stresses being added in from lowering of water table or water pressure in this area. And so just on the beginnings of developing this, the plan is that next month, probably the second week, I just saw emails coming through this morning that it looks like on the 11th, the morning before the board meeting, we can go out there and look at these 5 sites and literally document it with photography, which will be the biologist. We will not take a picture, but we'll have the biologist take a picture and see if that can be released so we can measure it and monitor over time. Without any pumping in the water basin, the conceptual model shows that water comes from the mountainsides, then it goes as mountain front recharge, but its discharge point is the playa, and it evaporates off or is pulled up by the vegetation that's on the playa. So as the basin gets stressed, less water will come out to this discharge area. And that will be over time. So you can feel a stress way over by a pumping center, but it may take decades for that stress to really hit the plants. So we want to make sure that we do not damage any natural ecosystem. And this is one of the requirements of the sustainability plan, is to have monitoring of this. And the sections, I just put the sections of the GSP just so anybody could look up what we're looking at putting together in this plan, and it's to take care of those. Next slide. I forgot that I had put these slides in. So this is the 5 sites that we're going to go over with the Navy on these pieces, and we obviously need a UXO officer to get into those. And then once we get the data after the site visits, then that's presenting it to the TAC and discussing what we're proposing to go forward with this plan. And then the next slide shows an example of one of those inset maps, and then all the data that we'll collect on the field visit. So we'll measure what the depth is and what the water is, and nearby faults will be an important part of it. The recent earthquake a couple years ago has affected water in the wells. We have seen that in our data. And then we'll look to see if there's any surface water feature associated with the vegetation. So that packet has gone to the Navy already for our approval to be on site. The next slide. This is the last of my 4 topics. Part of the GSP is that we chose 11 key wells that we're measuring water levels in. And because we have over 150 wells that we measure water levels in, we do report all that data. And we do contour maps. We use all that data to do contour maps of where water is flowing in the surface of the water in our annual reports. But in addition, these key wells are ones that we got funded from Prop 1 funding to put telemetry equipment, and their data gets posted on the DMS website. And it's open to the public. It does not require any, you just say public, there's a button, you put public, and it'll ask you for, it'll automatically fill in the password. If it doesn't, the password's water, but it should automatically fill it in. And then you'll get to a page where you can say you want to go to the map. And there are, all those wells are posted. You click on any well, and you can see the data collected since 1990, or some even have 1950. But most of them have from 1990. Some are more recent, it's only 20 years, but that's a long period of record. And you can see you can click on the well and ask for the data, and it will post the data on a graph and show you what data got collected where. But these are a little different. These will have daily data, and we're looking at the seasonal imprint. Part of the GSP is to also look at, you have a pumping season, you have a non-pumping season, you have a wet season. The water levels recover when there's no pumping, they go down when there's pumping. So these data loggers will collect that, and some of the data loggers are already posted, and you'll see that the later data has this more frequent data in it, and you can actually see water levels rising and going down on that daily basis. The reason I'm bringing these up is that we just, at the end of last month, got a notice that to proceed with the 5 wells at the Navy, which are right along the fence line, that the real estate department wanted to get administrative costs paid for. But since the 30th, I've now re-talked to the Navy, and they're going to check on all of that. Because all the equipment is in a well, that I can't say it will be waived, but we should be able to have that not have to be, that should probably be in kind. So though it's on this slide, it probably is going to be in kind, but I can't say that yet. Let's see what else to look at with this. We do, also since that time, we got the approval of the actual equipment that's going in the Navy. Because it's communications equipment, that has to go through a whole series of approval to make sure that there won't be any interference on the Navy base, because this will be a signal that sends out to a website. So obviously all of that had to be cleared, and that's been cleared at this point. And that is it on the technical pieces that we're moving forward.
Thank you, Jean. We'll see if we have any questions after all of that. I wanted to mention a couple other things. We have one more item, and Heather's going to do it. Heather Steele, who talked a minute ago, a little bit about total pumping. There's been some discussion at prior board meetings when we're on Zoom and all that crazy stuff, but some prior questions about total pumping in the basin. I know Director Vittora asked, are we keeping track of this? And so we thought we'd give a report about where we are. And You have a staff person here, April Kigwin, right here in front, who's been extremely valuable, extremely helpful. She worked with Heather and pulled this stuff together, but a lot of the work being done is right here. A couple other quick things before Heather does the last item, because then I'm done. I mentioned the Technical Advisory Committee, and I mentioned Dawn. Eddie Teasdale with Meadowbrook is very active on that group too. I don't think I see anybody else. John, you go to those TAC meetings? I think you do.
No, Charlotte covers.
Charlotte covers those. Okay, so I want to acknowledge the people that have been very, very active. We don't have a chair of that committee. One thing we'll need to do is get a chair. On the PAC, we've got David Janis here, who is the chair, and we've got Judy Decker over there, who is very, very active and very knowledgeable about what's going on in the basin. Mike, are you on the PAC? You know, Lyle Fisher. Oh, there's Lyle. You know, these lights, I can't even see you, Lyle. But Tom and John are on the PAC. Okay, so we've got PAC members here. These folks are volunteering their time. I mean, they're doing the work on this thing and contributing their time, and extremely helpful for us and the board, I'm sure. There was a comment earlier about knowledge, notification, and information when things are coming up. Both the TAC and the PAC, are public meetings just like this one, and we will try to make sure that information gets out so that if you want to attend, you can. But I expect we're probably going to have a TAC and a PAC meeting in the next 2 to 4 weeks. That's what I'm expecting. So with that, Heather, maybe real brief on the last item, total pumping on the basin and what you've got.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, again. We did want to take this opportunity to explain pumping in the basin, of how we determine that and the process we go to get that estimate. So each year in spring, as part of the annual report process that's required for SGMA, we look at all the pumping that's been reported to the GA, and then we look at our records of who the pumpers are in the basin, and we fill in any missing information. We fill in those gaps to determine the best estimate of pumping in the basin for the previous water year, which runs October through September. So just to give you some background, these are the previously published estimates. In water year 2019, we estimated about 23,000 acre feet of pumping produced in the basin, and in water year 2020, our estimate was around 22,000 acre feet. So about 3 times the state yield of 7650. Each year, we are filling in those gaps. We have more data. We have more information about the pumpers. So the uncertainty does go down every year. This coming year will be the first year now with the transient pool in place. So we do anticipate pumping to reduce some more this year. There are 2 entities that are not required to report monthly to the GA. That is the Navy and de minimis pumpers. So for de minimis pumpers, we do estimate their pumping based on the number of private domestic wells that we our estimate of that in the basin. So it's over 800 wells that we is our estimate in the basin. That's how we get our de minimis private pumping. And then for the Navy, annually they report each year their previous water year pumping to us, so that we can complete our efforts to estimate total pumping in the basin. So at this time, we don't have an estimate currently. We're in the middle of a water year, but by spring we'll have the next overall basin estimate of pumping. That's all I have with that. Unless Steve has anything more to add, I believe we can turn it back to you, Chairman Hayman.
Yes, we're done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we'll open up to public comment at this time on item number 7, the Water Resources Manager Report.
I'm Don Decker, a TAC member. I would like for Jean Moran to add some additional to her earlier comments about what progress has been made, funding identified for redrilling Old Inyo and the Bucket Well. Those are two wells that provide some of the earliest water level data in the basin, and they're both dry. And we should absolutely continue that record, and it will be done by redrilling. And I would ask Jean privately, but I think, ask these questions of Jean privately, but I think they're of greater interest to all of you, so I'm asking it here at the microphone.
Let's first take the Inyo well. So the Inyo well got videotaped to a deeper depth, so it appears that there's some kind of obstacle or some kind of something is in the well that's not allowing the sounder to go all the way down. And it is a long period of record. I think the closest well to it is, I'd have to check. There are other wells that are showing the exact same water level, but not with as long of a water period of record. So they're offset in the data nearby, and we don't have a funding source yet for replacing that well. The other, and that well is by which 18, well 18, the water district's well. So that's why it's also recording the sharp down decline. I could, it's too bad we don't have the website up, because you could actually see where that well is and also where when it stopped being able to record the water levels. And then the Bucket well is over by Walgreens and Walmart. Thank you. Sorry, Walmart. And that is in someone's backyard, and we've lost access to it. So, and we have not found another well to replace that one, to replace water levels in that area. So those are definitely two data gaps that are still data gaps, and that's been going on for since the beginning of the tax, so 2017, and we've not been able to address those two data gaps. Mm-hmm.
This is Judy Decker again. Have you addressed the issue of a well in the southeast with the cemetery? Because they have publicly stated that their well is not in a condition to use it to water grass at the cemetery anymore. I believe it's a water quality problem, but perhaps it could be used.
I'll have to check. I know that we have a cemetery well on our database.
Okay.
So I will check if that's the cemetery well, the same cemetery well, and I will talk to you.
We only have one of those.
Okay, then we do have that one. The cemetery well is now on our database.
And while I'm here, I too have some questions. Forgive me, because I wrote them down a long time ago at the beginning of the talk. Steve, in the beginning you mentioned something about an EIS for construction. Could you elaborate on that?
Actually, Judy, it wasn't me. It was Joseph, I think, that did under his report on our Prop 1 funding invoices, our progress reports and invoicing. What actually has occurred is that, as you know, we submit invoices on a quarterly basis to get reimbursed with the Prop 1 funds for expenses that the authority has. So we do that on a quarterly basis. 2 of the last invoices that we submitted, DWR came back to us and said that the invoices included actual physical work on things like stream gauge stations or evaporation stations or weather stations, things like that, actual physical work in the field. And before they could process the invoice, they needed to have verification that the work we did was in compliance with California CEQA requirements.
Right. For those public that are here for perhaps the first or second time, an EIS is an environmental impact study. It is quite expensive.
Well, if it's just the EIS impact statement for EIS, it's not a full CEQA or an EIR, which is impact report. It's just an environmental impact statement. And I mean, Joseph may still be on this, but my understanding is that either we've gotten concurrence on most of these from DWR that the work we did actually didn't need any additional documentation, or if it did, it's going to be very easy to prepare and resubmit.
But the construction part is part of the ongoing studies. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes. For example, under the Prop 1 funding, we got some funding. And remember, when we prepared the Prop 1 funding, Proposition 1 funding, our goal was to get as much funding as we could up to the full limit allowed for the organization. So we put a lot of things in there. We actually went through, again, the committees and the board to get input on projects. Some of the projects involve things that are certainly helpful and useful, maybe not mandatory for us to do a GSP or to do what we're doing, but they're certainly helpful. Some of the stream gauging station, as you folks know that live up here, we don't have a lot of free-flowing streams to be gauging.
Especially this year.
Especially this year throughout the state. So yes, we do have some projects in the Prop 1 agreement and the Prop 1 funding that involve field construction, but it's very, very minor. It's very local. It's small stuff. But the state has their restrictions. And I'll let you know, we were not told in the Prop 1 agreement that we did, or advised ahead of time while we were giving them progress reports what we were doing, that in order to submit invoices on these, we had to provide that information. It was only until after we submitted the invoices. So that's just the way it works with the state, and we think we're catching up with them right now.
The other question I have is actually for some of the things that Steve Reich talked about, and that is percolation ponds, whether it's for freshwater or for recycled water. I hope you are taking into consideration the evapotranspiration rate that occurs in this valley year-round, as well as especially in the summertime. And I hope you are also taking into consideration the climate. This year, we have had less than a quarter inch of rain since since April of 2020. All you have to do when you drive around is look at the native vegetation, the creosote bush. They look like they're dying. Yeah. If the climate gurus are correct in what they recently stated as far as weather and climate, what we have had this summer is going to become the norm. And for you guys who live in San Clemente and Point South, we had at least 5 days where the temperature exceeded 115, and we had 3 days over last weekend where it got up for a little bit to 123. Now think about that pond of water and what's going to happen to it. And the other thing I have about these upcoming issues, like those two big ones, you're talking about a perk pond for freshwater, imported water, expensive water, and recycled water, which is also going to be expensive. Are you going to do a cost comparison between the whole bit, buying the land, creating a perk pond, putting in all the infrastructure for that, versus water injection wells? Because if you aren't, you better plan to do that. Thank you. Oh, I have one more thing. It may just be the way you said it, Gene, but when you were talking about the shallow well mitigation plan process, it sounded like, to me, like it would take quite a while to go through that for the individual. And my comment about that is when people's wells start to go, they need water fairly quickly. And so I think you need to think about that a bit and address it, perhaps. Thank you.
If I might, Chairman, to answer your questions about the percolation ponds, it's yes to all of those.
Okay.
Yes, we're looking at, very carefully looking at net recharge, not what we put in the basin, but what we think we can get into the deep aquifer on each location and on all types of water. It's going to be a basin-wide location study, and then we'll figure out what facilities would be needed to get it to any place that even looks reasonable. So yes to all of those.
Okay, Mike Neal again. Let's go back to item C, the recycled water program. The work for that's already been done, as you well know. The water district paid money, good money, our money, to have it looked at, and found that the only reasonable way to deal with the recycled water was to put it into a deep injection well. The problem was, of course, that the part of the process in doing the study was that the water district wanted to basically, be the producer or at least a manager of that recycled water. And McGleason GA wanted to use that recycled water as a political football to strong-arm both the water district and Searles Valley into a ridiculous, which was not my statement, it was actually the water district representative's statement in different words, ridiculous agreement to sign on to so they could get this water, and at the same time they had to agree to never sue the GA for anything at all. That was declared to be nonsense at one of these meetings by the water district representative, and so here we are redoing a study that's already been done. People paying for it all over again, and there's only one reasonable conclusion, and you don't have to be a hydrologist to figure this out. You take the recycled water and you put it into an injection well. You put it into a percolation pond like Mrs. Decker just said, it evaporates away on you. Well, that makes no sense, and it's really not hard to come to a conclusion about. So all the money being spent on this particular study is a waste as far as I'm concerned. You're wasting our money. You already know what needs to be done with it. You already got an agency here in town. It's not the GA that's the best one to take care of this situation. Now, let's go to the only thing in the short term the GA is doing that's really going to be of any use to anybody, and that's the shallow well mitigation program. There are people reportedly in the valley who are approaching getting dry wells on their property, and they need a solution. And I've stated many times before, I don't think people in this valley have any problem paying money towards helping those other neighbors of theirs get it solved. The problem is, of course, that there's probably a lot of people in the valley who just simply may not know that that's available. Well, you talk about your outreach, so forth and so on. Everybody knows most of those people are in China Lake Acres or in Indian. Go out to China Lake Acres, Buttermilk Acres store, go out to Ace Hardware, go out to the Classic Burger, use their bulletin boards, put up notices and say, this is available, guys. They'll see it. I put up notices out there and people have seen them. But, you got to actually send somebody down the road 10 miles to go do that. So do that and get those people apprised of the help that they can take advantage of. Now, let me look at my notes here because we went through a long period of reports. The COSO royalty fund recharge from the Sierras, I guess I'm just shocked to see that we're looking at what would be the recharge from the Sierras when we've gone through over 3 years of doing all these studies of all kinds and coming up with a recharge rate for the basin. And now you're saying maybe we don't really know what the recharge rate is. We're going to look at the Sierras for what the recharge rate is. That's my question. Do we really not know what the recharge rate is? And that's why we're doing this particular study. So I'll let you answer that after I go sit down. Okay, and again, back to the surface percolation and what do you do with potential imported water? Well, I basically already addressed that when talking about the recycled water. Doing a percolation recharge study, as far as I'm concerned, and most people who know water would say, is a waste of time. You don't put it on the surface to evaporate, especially when you're paying $2,000+ per acre feet for it to get it there to start with. So I don't know why we're wasting time and money doing things on studies where the conclusion is a foregone conclusion, and anybody with just simple good sense would know what the result should be.
This is a good time to talk about what he asked. I apologize for, at any moment, speaking out of turn. On my last outbreak there. One of the things that was brought up was the amount of water that, let me go back to my notes. I apologize again here. Us users, Indian Wells Valleys, I was wondering, a lot of people, we may not know how we can go ahead and actually determine how much money we may have to come up with to use the water because of the WG or the authority. That portion, is it something we can look up on the internet to base, like, if we use so much water, this will be your fee? Will we find that out on the internet? Can we? Pardon? The authorities' fees?
Sir, there is on the water districts, the IWVWD.com website. You can go in, put an estimate, say you were using 2,500 cubic foot, and it'll calculate what your fees for the GA would be.
I think, what I was asking is actually, as we know how much water we're using, where we can actually cut it off, knowing that fee may increase substantially. So that was my first concern, was the place in which you'd find this out. Because I call every month to find out when they've checked my meter. I'm at that point exactly today. So I know that once I make this phone call, I can either go ahead and use water today or wait until they actually check my meter. Now, as far as the water that we seem to be insufficient of in our aquifers, now, would it be possible and fair that isn't there moratoriums for certain things in life, like permits for homes in an area in which doesn't have quite enough water for even the homes that are in the area, whether it be here or even bigger yet, LA and all the cities in that county or counties close by, coming from DWP, the water being used from the aquifers that they capture water prior to it ever getting here. Now, wouldn't that be another consideration, that they lessen or make a moratorium on the permits that are given for businesses, homes, and the like, so that they don't have to capture as much here?
So I'm going to have to, I don't see where this ties into the water item number 7 for the water resource managers report. So public comment at this time is geared toward items that were just reviewed. So I would say
you want to shut that down. I get it.
Yeah, but
we don't have much time we don't have much of a chance
public
to
comment at the beginning when we have public comment.
Right.
That's for items that are not on the agenda. Currently, we're taking public comment for an item.
I
so
get
if
that.
it's not pertaining directly to this, I'm going to have to ask that
it's nothing. I know it's not unfair what I'm doing right now because there's not many people here to begin with.
No.
So if there was
if it's not pertaining to item number 7, I'm going to ask that you.
I started with comments that this gentleman right here brought up. So let's see if I can keep in touch with you guys and keep on the same page. Okay. I really believe that, okay, you've got grants and funding coming in, grants. Can this trickle down into, once they're approved or received, the water bill that we pay as residents of this community? Do we find, I see, yeah, confusion. I see confusion.
Yeah, I'm not following where you're going.
Well, so what I'm asking is, do we expect our bills to continue to either go up, stabilize, or is there any kind of reduction? Hope.
I think that would be a good question to take to the Indian Wells Valley Water District.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, can I
yes,
cut in for a second? I think the question is being asked, so what's been explained is that the water district is the one who sets the water rates. We may want to have a discussion, I don't know, at some point about the decisions that have been made at that level, but we don't set those rates.
I understand that, but then that's why I asked a specific question about the rate that is attached to the Indian Wells water, and that would be the authority's rate. Is it significant? Where can we find that information? So, is it always consistent to the amount of water that we use, and is there a percentage that we can determine?
Oh, if I might, the GA's portion of the water district bill is $1.94, I believe, per unit. It's broken down into $1.70 for the replenishment fee and 24 cents for the pumping fee. Add up to $1.94, and that will be there as long as the GA has those two fees. The water district does not change those. We just transfer those from the GA, who bills us, to our customers.
All right. Well, at least that makes sense. All right. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Steve brought up, the water resource manager brought up the TAC, and the TAC meeting again full-time. But the PAC and the TAC have different rules for direction on their agenda, and I didn't know whether to bring this up during the general manager's report or Steve, since he brought it up. I have talked to him about this. The PAC is ready, more than ready to meet in person. Now that we don't have the 6-foot social restrictions, social distancing restrictions, that makes it much easier for a 16-person panel, which we are, advisory panel, to meet. But it requires their agenda items are developed by the staff, specifically the general manager and the water resources manager, but approved at the meeting prior to when we would meet by the GA itself. That's a little different than the TAC. So I would ask for us to add an agenda item so that, and we probably, under the rules, can't do it at this meeting, but we tee up items for a in-person PAC meeting after the next GA meeting, where we'd have an agenda proposed that would tee those things up. Then we would have to schedule a new meeting schedule to adjust to the change in the GA moving forward a week. Sometime, timing-wise, we've proven in the last 3 years, it needs to be 2 weeks after your meeting and 2 weeks prior to the GA board meeting, the next one, for both prep and our work on it and input, and then assessment by the staff leading into your meeting. So that would put us, both the PAC and the TAC, on a schedule for the fourth week of the month. We would need to find a specific day that worked for our members, but we need that. First thing we need is to you all approve an agenda for us and agree to get us started meeting in person.
Okay. Any other public comment pertaining to item number 7, water resource managers? Okay, we have a caller. Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee West of Lusk, and I'm just calling to get clarification on the Prop 1 status where Joseph mentioned legal challenges that were environmental, and there was a referral to the environmental impact study. Was that originally required when Prop 1 grants were applied for back, I think, in October of, was it 2017 or 2018 for that grant? Has that always been part of the grant administration? You have to provide environmental data?
I can answer.
Go ahead.
Hi, Renee. This is Steve. My recollection, I have not looked at the grant agreement for some time, but my recollection is, yes, that in the original grant agreement, there was a clause, there was inclusion that for physical projects that they would require environmental documentation, CEQA approval at DWR before they would provide grant funding for those projects. We frankly looked at our projects different than DWR. We didn't look at what we were doing as real projects. These are stream gauging stations, very small little installations. Our interpretation of that part of the agreement was the projects that we have going forward with the GSP, real projects, well drilling and things like that we might do, would certainly require CEQA. But some of the things that they have tagged as a project needing CEQA compliance, that's not something that we actually didn't get or felt like we needed CEQA compliance to do the work, and therefore didn't include those documents. But and as I mentioned before, Renee, some of the items that they have they identified, we've talked to them. They've already agreed that we don't need any CEQA compliance for those things. Others were done on Navy property, and the Navy's giving us information indicating that CEQA is not required for things that are done on the Navy, so on Navy property. So I think we've got it worked out. I think it's just the way this DWR looks at their regs and goes through the invoices to make sure that they hit all of their marks. But I think we're in good shape.
Steve, this is Joseph. I just wanted to add on to what you were saying. We're not required at this time to prepare any sort of environmental impact study or report. We've simply been asked to fill out an updated version of basically a 2-page environmental information form, which basically documents whether any parts of our funding agreement are subject to CEQA, and if so, the status of any CEQA compliance that was done to address those requirements. So again, we're not doing any study at this time. We're just submitting an updated version of this form.
Thank you, Joseph. And just for clarification too, it's just deferring the reimbursement. It's not we don't have a problem getting reimbursed. It's just deferring their approval before we get the money. That's what we're working on.
Okay, and then I just had one other question regarding it's the report form for the shallow well mitigation. It says on the website that it was redrafted. Is this actually going to go out to the public for them to use if they're having problems with their well? Or is there still another approval process?
There is no other approval process. The form that's there should be the one that you should use. We did not, at least I'm just the Water Resources Manager, so it's not my call. We did not anticipate distributing it to the public, but it's available on the website, and then available certainly through April in the office if somebody wanted to pick one up in person.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Any other public comment on item number 7? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will move on to item number 8, agreement with Brown Armstrong to conduct the 2020 financial audit. And I believe this is with our General Manager, Carol.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have in your packet a resolution proposed for approval of an agreement with Brown Armstrong to perform our 2020 financial audit. And Brown Armstrong has done our audit for the past several years, and we thought, particularly considering that this is a transition year as far as staffing goes, it would be wise to use the same audit firm that we've used for the past several years. They have experience with us. They've given us a proposal, and it's provided there. It's actually outside of your packet, but you should have it there in front of you. The proposal will not exceed $12,000, and we would begin that next month if you approve it. We have the resolution 0621 proposed for your consideration.
Okay, very good. We'll open up item number 8 to public comment. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Okay, seeing none, any public comment from call-ins? No public comment. We'll bring it back to the board for any board questions or discussion.
Hey there, it's John Blow. Can y'all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I've been having internet issues with our entire county system, so I'm calling in, and some whatever call number is showing up as speaking right now. It's been me this whole time. Anyhow, I don't have any issue with the financial audit agreement, the actual contract itself. I'm just not sure we need a resolution to do this. For bigger policy issues, I would expect to see a resolution, but for kind of a routine contract, I'm not sure we need to do a resolution, and it's really form over substance comment here, but my suggestion is to move forward with approving the actual agreement, but I'm not sure we need to have a resolution to do that. Unless there's some other legal issue we're missing, I think moving forward we should just bring this contract forward as a contract and not necessarily as a resolution, unless there's some other policy issue that I'm not seeing.
I'll defer to legal. We just used the same format that had been used in the past.
That's right. I see everybody's looking over at me. Director Vallejo is correct that it's not required. It's a little bit of a belt and suspenders thing. My understanding is that we've been doing that following suit, I think, by the format set by the Water District, is what I heard through the grapevine, but that's a rumor. The bottom line is you could have the resolution, you could do it without the resolution. Either way would be just as effective.
So my thanks for that, Keith. My suggestion is that we save resolutions for bigger picture policy decisions and declarations. They're like more momentous issues, and that we just simply move forward with the contract itself without the resolution.
So since we went down the rabbit hole, let me clarify the point of a resolution. So basically any motion you guys make up here, you can make oral motions all the time. Any motion you make up here is a resolution. We have written resolutions for instances where there's some specific language we're trying to memorialize carefully. All this resolution does say we hereby approve the contract. That would be confirmed by the motion itself.
If I could jump in real quick there, Keith, I think the bottom line of this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Vallejo, but I think he's saying we should maybe have had on consent and on the consent agenda, and can do that with some of the contracts moving forward. But That's up to the board as a whole, but is that kind of what you're getting at, Director Vallejo?
Yeah, and if I'm a member of the public and I'm looking for like important policy documents, I'm going to go look at the ordinances and resolutions, and I'm not sure this really qualifies as something that rises to that level. And so, yeah, I think putting it on a consent in the future, or just bringing it forward as simple board action, I guess it could just become semantics in terms of whether it's a resolution or not. It just seems a little excessively formal, and I'm belaboring the point now, so I'll let it go.
Chairman Heyman, this is Phil Hall. I believe I have an answer as to why we did a resolution in the past, but I believe the answer is when we first started doing our audits, we did not have any fee structure really. And to do a biannual audit instead of an annual audit, which we were doing for a while, you had to have a resolution of the board to do that. So I think that's how we got on the path of resolutions. But obviously we're not doing biannuals anymore, and we've got more funding coming in, so it's time to move over to annuals. So just to give some past history, I think that's how we got to doing a resolution in the past.
I don't care if we do a motion or not. I just want to move forward and get it done.
Okay, well, I believe because it's agendized, we need a motion, if I'm not mistaken, so I'll go ahead and make that.
Did you move? Second.
Vice Chair Rotorua?
Aye.
Chairman Heyman?
Aye.
Director Peters?
Aye.
Director Vallejo?
Aye.
Director Itnire?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, General Manager's Report.
Okay, thank you. So you have in your packet the financial statement through May 31st. And this continues to be a work in progress as we continue to look into the authority's financials and piece together what we can. I guess notably for this month, we were trying to look further into an item that was called outstanding invoices, and I believe they were attributed to Stetson. And as it turns out, we discovered that there were additional invoices. We thought we had identified these in particular, and found that there were actually others that were put in the budget that were invoices carried over from 2020, paid, no longer outstanding, Steve, for the most part, but carried over, and so just identified here in the 2021 budget. So we're continuing to work on trying to make this comprehensive and complete, and it's a work in progress again. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them, and if not, I'll get back to you.
Did you want to take questions on this now, or wait till the end of your?
I think it'd be appropriate to wait till the end of the
questions now.
Yeah.
Carol.
It's completely at your discretion.
Okay. I do have a couple questions. On the page 2, there is a line item of $514,000 that is outstanding invoices. It had been budgeted in the original budget for $619,000, but it was in the GSP development line. And my understanding is that was to pay off the outstanding GSP costs. And now it's showing up under the replenishment fee. And I'm wondering, why is it not under the GSP development like it was originally budgeted?
Well, what you're finding is where we are, what funds we're using to pay these, and so that's why it would be under there, because this is where the funds would have been to be able to pay that size of invoices.
So you're telling me you're putting it under the column where there is money as opposed to the column that is where it was originally budgeted to be under, and that's the only difference?
Well, in fact, April's been working on this considerably, and I'll ask her to help us out here.
Those Stetson invoices were not GSP development projects. They were GSP implementation, which pulls from the replenishment fee and grant money.
And I guess I'm just not aware of any invoices that we've gotten. What happened? So there's still $619,000 of GSP development fees that were in the. That is, we modified the pumping fee from $30 to $105 to be able to pay off the invoices that we had received that we hadn't paid for GSP development. And that was part of the $1.5 million that was supposed to be the payoff for the GSP. And that was the $619,000. Now you're telling me there's an additional $514,000 that are associated with additional GSP development costs, or what?
So Phil or Keith can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know part of the reason for the increase to the extraction fee was due to litigation, if I remember correctly. Most of that GSP implementation or GSP development invoices were paid. That $619,000 isn't one or the other, it's a mixture of both. What they are specifically, I don't have that breakdown at this moment, but for Stetson, and Steve is right there, but I believe most of their projects at this point will be pulled from grant money or replenishment as the GSP has been submitted at this point.
I'm going to say the legal fees there were $600,000 of legal fees added to the GSP development fees for defending the GSP, but they are not yet invoiced. I mean, that money hasn't been spent. So I guess I'm confused, but that's all right. Won't be the first time I've been confused. The second thing is $438,000 that is in the line that is Stetson. And based upon this month's invoices, the Stetson invoices were less than 1% of the total of the Stetson invoice. It looks like the original budget called for $60,000, and it's up to $438,000. And my gut tells me that no more than 5% of the Stetson total cost should be associated with the imported water. So I don't understand where that could be. And my last comment, not a question, is if you look at the bottom line under the imported water, it's titled, it's titled replenishment fee, but it is the imported water portion of the replenishment fee. It's a minus $369,000. So if you look at that number, and if Capital Corps were to get real lucky, or if we were to get real lucky, and there were Table A water entitlement out there that we could purchase at a reasonable cost, there wouldn't be any money to pay for it. So I'm concerned that these numbers are not consistent, and it may be I just don't understand it, but simple farm boy from Iowa, they don't make sense to me. So that's all I have. Yeah, Carol, I don't want to cut you off. If you wanted to comment, jump right in.
I can tell you that our note from our finance manager was that he had been trying to find the discrepancy between the $60,000 budget item versus the $438,000, and he and April have been working together, but they have not yet actually tracked all of that to be able to report on it yet. They're still working on it. Okay, so if there's no more questions on the financial statement, we will move on. We have a report in the packet from the Capital Core Group. They are continuing to monitor both federal and state funding opportunities for us, working on trying to position us for future opportunities for federal funds as opportunities come for some of the projects that we're looking at for the future here. Also continuing to monitor some state programs where funds might come available following the adoption of the budget for the coming year. There looks like there might be some funding available for some specific projects that may or may not be applicable to our area. And then also, of course, Capital Corps continues to assist us in our efforts to purchase water rights for bringing in imported water. And so there's that report in the packet if you'd like to take a look at it. And then finally, we have our SDAC report. Two parts to that. The leak detection and repair program continued through, there's a report through May. For your information, a lot of work continued primarily at Pioneer Point. And then there's a final report in the packet for the rebate program. That was the other part of the grant program. And that wrapped up as of the end of May. Unfortunately, there just wasn't much interest. This was basically a consumer program. And despite the outreach efforts, there just was not a lot of participation from the public in the program. Ultimately, I think $350 in rebates were dispersed. The total cost of the program were $65,000 plus $350. Remaining, though, in the program budget was $84,350 as it closed. And so we're looking to move that money over to the leak detection and repair aspect of the grant program and working with DWR to amend the contract. We'll be bringing that to you for consideration in the future. Hopefully, if not August, September at the latest, we'll be looking to extend the term of the program through October of next year. If we're successful in being able to do this, it would enable us to do additional leak repair and detection work, and we might be broadening the scope of that as well. But we'll be bringing that to you within the next month or two, I hope, for consideration. I believe that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Carol. We'll open up to public comment on item 9, General Manager's report. Any public comment from the floor? Any public comment from call-in? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions from the board? Any discussion? None? Okay. So with that, we will move on to closing comments. Item number 10. You could start with Director Vallejo.
Nothing from me, thanks.
Director Ittner.
Nothing here.
Director Peters.
Nothing here, Director.
I have a couple comments. I heard the mention of the TAC on multiple occasions today, and I appreciate the fact that we're going to get them involved. I want to make sure that we don't forget about the PAC. The PAC has got a lot of very capable local residents in it as well. And my feeling is the PAC should be deciding which of the various things they want to comment on, and anything that goes to the TAC should also, my recommendation is that also go to the PAC. If indeed they choose not to comment on it, that's their choice. I want to see as much of the public comment on as many things as possible. I think we're in a position after COVID of trying to regain the trust of the public, and the best way to do that is put as much information out in as many places as we can, as often as we can. I would like to see a good deal more separate subject. Like to see a good deal more discipline put into the finance reporting. And I apologize for sounding like I'm beating Carol over the head, because that's not my intention. I think we just need, as an organization, to have a much better handle on how many invoices we have from what years and to what fund they are being invoiced. We need to get a hold of that. We're in the 7th month of this fiscal year, and quite frankly, I don't understand the current financial reports. And last of all, I want to thank those citizens that came in to listen to this long discussion. Appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you contributing and even being out there in the seats to show your interest is appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, and any closing comments from our other board members, Navy and BLM?
Sure. So the Bureau of Land Management hasn't been a part of the TAC. Well, we were part of the TAC before it was the TAC, but our strong resource person has retired, but we're hoping to retire that position. So I just want to let you all know that while the Navy has been, really involved with the GDEs, the groundwater dependent ecosystems, the BLM has an interest in participating in that particular discussion, and we hope to get back into the TAC. So while I participate on the PAC, I know just a fraction of what a hydrologist or a well-trained resource person would be able to contribute to the TAC, but we do want to participate. Just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, sir. And I believe that is everybody. Okay, so I have a couple of closing comments myself. One is I'm concerned with the rate that customers, water customers, are paying for their water rates, and that they may be paying more than they need to be paying. It's my understanding that the Indian Wells Valley Water District could finance their needs with the water requirements and the replenishment fee, that they could finance that over a longer term, which would stand to lower the overall fee. And so, I would like the board to direct the staff to come back at our next meeting in August with options for the Indian Wells pertaining to the Indian Wells Valley Water District, being able to reduce the fees to their customers. So the other thing I'd like to comment on that pertains to what Mr. Janis had brought up with the PAC and TAC. Do you need any direction from the board in regards to setting up either your staff rapport with yourself or with the PAC or TAC committees to get this established and have the time issues brought to a formal, cohesive
Yeah, no, what we need, now that we know since the GA board changed its weekly schedule, moved it forward by a week, we will have to change ours. And by email, I can solicit all the members of the PAC and find a day in that 4th week of the month that meets our requirements. It previously was the 3rd or the first week of the month, obviously. But now we have to get one that meets everybody's needs, and I think it'll probably be, again, a Thursday, but we need to find out. But then specifically for the PAC, the rules that the GA had set forward, this board has to approve the agenda items for our next meeting. So we will need, I'll get ready a set of agenda items working with staff, with general manager and the water resources manager to tee up at that August board meeting But this, you need to have on the agenda an item that addresses the PAC meeting and what tasking or agenda items you want to give us. That's what we had set down as our procedure prior to COVID, but we have not exercised that in 16 months. So everybody's gotten not used to that. I think the TAC has had more changes in membership, but they have a vice chair who can be tasked to see what works for them meeting, and it likely is that same Thursday that we both used to meet on, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. That makes it very easy for the most people to attend. A lot of people attend both of them. And we will have to, the board itself will have to go out and reconfirm the nominations and approvals of those nominations of members to fill those positions that have been vacated or no longer active. And there are several. There's one I know of on the PAC, but there are several more, I think, on the TAC.
Dave, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think you're absolutely right. What has been set up in the past, I think that is totally way over cumbersome in terms of actually getting the PAC or the TAC to do anything constructive. I'd like to simplify it, and even if we have to vote on it, I think that a simple head nod from the chairman as to the agenda for the TAC and the PAC, that's how we have a chairman. Let's use the chairman. Let's let the staff come up with some ideas. Let the chairman approve it, and let's get on with business. If we continue to worry about administrative trivia time and day after day, we're not going to get anything done. We need to rebuild the trust of the public in the GA, and we're not going to do it by keep pushing off meetings and pushing off topics. Let's simplify it however we need to do it. I'd like to simplify it, and let's get started actually using the TAC and the PAC and cut out a lot of this stuff that, quite frankly, is administrative that we don't need.
Stan, I agree with you. Just to clarify, that was a process that was required really for something that happened 4 years ago out of that. And I would support that the players are different players, and we've demonstrated that we can manage this as adults, and we have the trust of the board. And so I would agree with you, because that was the process and is the process for the TAC. It was the PAC specifically for the policy advisory portion that had to have the agenda item approved. And I talked to the water resource manager. We didn't have any teed up. If we were to have a meeting 2 weeks from now, we didn't have any yet, any items that we would put forward. So I would ask the agenda, I would support Stan's request for the board to streamline this process and get an agenda item that proposes what you're saying, so that there is documentation that is the new PAC process versus what's written down in the bylaws and approved by the GA in past meetings. I think you need to memorialize that.
So this is something we could bring forward to the next meeting? Is that kind of what we're agreeing on a kind of a proposal here? And so this could be an agenda item in and of itself to discuss this, kind of come to a conclusive streamlining process. So everybody's good with that? And then, of course, and how about as far as my option to bring on the directing the staff for the bringing options back to the board for this next meeting for the Indian Wells Valley Water District on the options of reducing the fee. We're all good? Okay. Thank you, Dave. Any other closing comments? Okay, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.